Morning, everyone. Hope we're all doing well. We'll just give it a minute and just we've got various people joining at the minute, so a thumbs up. So I'm hoping that means that I'm I'm transmitting and people can see and hear me. Okay, brilliant. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes just for anyone to join that's not on yet. We've seen a few more names appear in the list, and then we'll go through it. I've got a bit of a presentation to go through, so I'll run through that. If I can ask for, I believe there's a Q&A function, but we'll tackle any questions, answers at the end. My colleague David is also on the call, running everything in the background. So if there is anything during the presentation, because when I'm going through the slides, I can't see the team screen. If there is anything that comes through, David will just give me a shout and interrupt me to intervene. Bizarrely, they've got the whole truck fitter telephoning me, which I'm very excited about. I don't know why they're ringing me, but yes, I'm hoping it's good news. I'm going to see a couple of shows there in the summer, so I assume it's related to that. Right, it's a couple of minutes past, so we will make a start. There's a little bit of intro to begin with anyway, so anyone who joins after then won't miss too much. We will be we are recording this webinar and we'll be sharing it after the event on YouTube. So if you do want to watch it again, or if you want to share it with colleagues, that we will send around a link for everyone. So switching to my slides then. So for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Mike Raven. I've been working with East Riding Council almost 25 years now. I've worked with YORhub for many of those, working initially on the procurement side, working as a YORbuild framework manager. I went and did project management for a while. So prior to my current role, I headed up the project management team at East Riding, and now I'm YORhub's client engagement lead. So I spend a lot of time meeting with clients, giving them advice in terms of how to deliver schemes, procurement routes, strategies, how to de-risk projects, things like that. For today, though, I'm talking particularly about sustainability and how to practically incorporate it within your procurement route. I'm doing this as the National Sustainability Lead for the National Association of Construction Frameworks, and we'll talk a little bit about what those are in a moment. But yeah, the long and the short of it is I've done a lot in terms of construction procurement. I've also done quite a lot in terms of delivery as a project manager. So I like to think I'm able to sit on both sides of the fence and talk about how to implement some of the aspirations and the big strategies that we have in our frameworks when it comes to individual schemes. So what is the National Association of Construction Frameworks? So back in 2014, the NACF was formed from a number of regional public sector framework providers, one of which was YORhub, others shown on the screen there. Because we recognise the value in collaborating across regions. We want to make sure that our contractors and consultants, you're not facing different requirements when you if you work on a YORhub project in Leeds, we should ideally be trying to align so you see similar requirements when you're working in Rochdale or Newcastle, so you're not having to try and set up different reporting processes for every single part of the country. NSA frameworks are exclusively owned and managed by the public sector for the public sector, so we're all operated by local authorities effectively. Pretty much all the ones on the list, certainly YORhub is operated between East Riding Council, Sheffield Council, Leeds Council, and North Yorkshire Council. As I say, I'm an East Riding employee, as is David, also on the call. The NACF collaborates on a variety of national initiatives. So we do a lot with Construction Leadership Council, a lot with Construction Excellence. We've contributed to things like the Construction the government construction strategy, the value toolkit, constructing the gold standard. So we have a lot of involvement in a lot of different industry best practice groups, and a lot of the publications that come out we fed into. So so yeah, that's the NACF. If you want to know anything more about them, we do have a website, or give me a shout afterwards. And any presentation from me will be incomplete without at least a slide in YORhub. For anyone who isn't fully aware, we operate a suite of construction works and services frameworks. Our most recent Your Build Major Works 2 framework went live a couple of weeks ago, and we're already getting a lot of conversations about the framework. We offer a mixture of mini competition and direct award routes, and we do have, I'm pleased to say, an award-winning social value offer, which some of the content I'm going to come on to is built into. The frameworks are easy to access in the first instance. If you're thinking about YORhub or want to know more, do come to me or my colleague Caroline, who also works with me when it comes to client engagement. Or if you've worked with YORhub before, our from managers who you've dealt with in the past will be very happy to talk to you and guide you through again. So I we're getting into public procurement, and I'll do a little couple of bits of history because it makes me look clever, even though I've obviously just been and Googled it and done some reading into it, because it's way before my time. But we tend to kind of think that UK public procurement legislation is something that's happened in the last few decades, and there's been a lot of legislation in the last few decades, so it's not entirely untrue. But the desire to ensure that you get value for money, that you get the social good when you're delivering projects, that's something the governments have looked at for centuries. Couple of examples. So we have here a picture of Greenland, southern Greenland. Is the Greenland Trade Act. So this was something in 1692 by Westminster. It's the legislation appointed a governor, deputy governor, and 16 committees to operate the Greenland Company Corporation. The Trade Act required these individuals to take an oath committing to not hinder or prejudice the government, i.e. comply with the law. But they also required that ships and vessels would be navigated with 1/3 of the mariners being English. So it's an employment and skills social value requirement. It's something that we have in our frameworks today. So you know, it's a very long history there. And going even further back, no presentation isn't improved by a reference to the Roman Empire. So location sensoriae, which I'm sure I've just destroyed the how you pronounce it, but nevertheless, this was public contracts. So public contracts were managed by Roman censors. And what they used to do was they would run an auction, and unlike an e-auction like we would do nowadays, it will be in person naturally, but it will be an auction for bids, with bidders required to comply with certain conditions and require the successful bidder to provide a personal and material guarantee to fulfill the contract. So again, the kind of the guarantees, warranties that we will put into our requirements today when it comes to a tender process, you know, it was in there then. And coming up to today, why are we still talking about it? Well, this is just a handful of screenshots, and I'm sure I could have made the full hour just screenshots of news items and reports from government, from various best practice groups about how we need to try and be more efficient. We've got lots of money. What it doesn't feel like it, but there is lots of money around how do we spend it the best way to get the maximum impact, and right up to the what our current Prime Minister is talking about in terms of wanting to make sure that you get opportunities. Big fan of devolution. That it's clear that impact of how do we get as much impact, social impact for our spend, is only going to continue. So it's going to continue to be a massive topic for us. So there's a number of areas for us to consider when it comes to these topics, and the you'll be pleased to know that I have combined some of these to try and make it run a little bit slicker. But the four items I'm going to talk about is specifications and standards. We're going to touch on the Construction Playbook. We'll touch on Procurement Act and KPIs, and then we'll actually talk about how to really have an effect, because it's all well and good talking about these documentations and these aspirations, but it's how do we actually apply it in our organisations, and recognising every organisation, and to be fair, each one of us is at probably a different stage in our knowledge, our understanding of this area. So the first one we'll touch on then is specifications and standards, and we'll do this over a couple of slides. So some of the things to consider, the materials that you're choosing to use. We will touch on materials again at the end of the presentation, but where's the material being sourced from? What's the duration, its longevity? What's the ability to recycle it at the end of its life? I mentioned that one particularly because we're seeing increased use of recycled steel at the moment due to steel mills encountering issues relating to energy security. When it comes to working methods, so are you specifying and requiring things that have to be cut on site, or are you able to minimize waste by getting things prefabricated and just brought to site and assembled? Reporting of carbon data, and we'll go through this in a little bit more detail. So in terms of carbon data, so trying to identify, what, and I've put this under specification standards because you can measure carbon 101 different ways with even 1,000 more combinations of what to include and what not to include. And so in terms of the NACF, what we're doing is we've been talking across the frameworks for a while now on it. We are looking to require contractors to report carbon data on any new build construction schemes over 5 million. What we're looking for them to provide is, if it's a scheme that they're working as principal designer on, so i.e. D&B, we're asking them to report forecast carbon data for each REBA estate that they're appointed, and then in all cases, whether it's D&B or not, to provide actual carbon data at REBA 5 based on the materials actually used and installed in the scheme. We're doing this with the built environment carbon database, with the intention to build up that bank of data, so then in time that can be used to give us some real insight in as to which buildings perform better, comparing the design forecasts to the actuals, and being able to identify any drop in performance or improvement in performance, so we can see how things fall out. So there's a lot that we're doing in terms of the NACF. I should say that with the built environment carbon database, if anyone's not aware of it, this is a free and open database operated by BCIS and supported by pretty much most of the main bodies and institutes in the construction industry. So it's by all means, go check out the website. You can download data on BECD now. So there's a lot of information there, both in terms of assets and in terms of products. I've got government buying standards on here. To be honest, we're still waiting for updates from DEFRA. The buying standards have been around for a number of years. DEFRA did a big consultation last year, but so far I've not seen any sign of the new standards coming out. So watch this space, slightly frustratingly. Getting on to the last point there, we'll drill into this in a little bit more detail, but the carbon reduction codes for the built environment. This is something that NACF members are signing up to, and in turn getting their framework contractors and consultants to sign up. What is the code? So it's a framework. It's plain language. It's a nice, easy to understand framework for organisations to promote, to commit to reaching net zero carbon. They have to put a plan, a publicly available plan for how they're going to get to net zero carbon, and they need to report on that plan. So you need to show the progress that you're making. The it forms part of the CLC's Construct Zero initiative. It's in the Construction Playbook. It's in the UK Green Building Council roadmap. It's it's in all of the key industry guidance and documentation that you would expect it to be. So it's very much, in terms of the NACF and YORhub, we consider this to be the commitment that we're expecting suppliers in the industry should be making. And I say suppliers, for me, it's very clear this isn't just a contractors thing. This is for our design partners as well, because design, we recognize, has got a massive impact how you design those schemes. So the bulk of your commitment of your work, if you're a supplier, is what are you doing to skill up your staff when it comes to carbon literacy, to energy friendly and environmental friendly approaches to design. So the code gives a nice simple way for organizations to demonstrate their commitment to net zero. And it's supported by a code advisory group which the NSF sits on, along with all the key industry partners. So there's a lot of ongoing work on the code. The code is rapidly getting more applications, more members coming in. The last code meeting I was at, there was a huge host of organizations applying to join. So if your organization hasn't signed up to the code yet, I would definitely be saying to look at that, because it is something that it is going to be required increasingly. And I believe actually in our current Major Works 2 new framework that's just come out, the suppliers on the framework, part of the framework agreement is that if they've not already signed up to the code, they will sign up within certain timescales. So it's a direction that we're driving. Moving on to the Construction Playbook then, and a lot of this is not news. It's not news, but we still see the same approaches happening. Early contractor involvement, early supplier involvement should pay dividends. I still see far too many tenders which are basically one stage D&B. They're actually full client design, but they've been set up just to pass risk over to a contractor. And I do understand the issues and concerns that people sometimes have when it comes to early supplier involvement. It doesn't mean that you lose any kind of commercial control. You should always go into an early supplier involvement with good cost management advice by your side. But the reality is, we know, in many cases, we know how much a job costs, and the early involvement is really about how to de-risk it, how to identify better approaches for environmental benefit, for social value benefit, for a whole host of areas. And that's why we should be considering it much more. And also an outcome-based approach. Again, I see a lot of specifications which are to the nth degree, and sometimes that's for a good reason, but sometimes it's almost overlooking the fundamental of what you're trying to achieve with your scheme, and communicating that to your partners, to your contractors, to your designers, and try and benefit from their thoughts and advice. Because I have seen schemes that have saved tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds in them being able to challenge and just kind of say, well, this that you've put forward doesn't actually achieve what you want. The third point there, embedding into evaluation models. Again, this isn't a new thing, and it's in the Construction Playbook guidance on carbon net zero, but ensuring that your tender evaluation models enable assessment of responses when it comes to delivery sustainability, emissions reduction, environmental performance. All too often, I do see, again, tender evaluation models which are generic. They've not been customized to the project at all. And for me, that's a missed opportunity, because ultimately that tender process should be trying to get a client the best supplier for that project. And I would always look to customize a evaluation to try and suit what were the client's priorities, what I'm trying to get out of the scheme. If the I mean, touching back to YORhub, we have template tender documentation. It can, it can be altered, it can be amended. If anyone is ever wondering how to do it, do let us know. I'm happy to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through how to do that with you. I would also signpost people to the What a Good Tender looks like document on the YORhub website. This isn't a new document, it's been around a few years. We revised it a couple of years back, but it's not new. But the quality of tender documentation, that's what you need in order to get across to your suppliers. This is what's important to you when it comes to carbon, when it comes to, again, a whole host of areas. And coming on to the Procurement Act, originally I had KPIs as a separate slide, but in reality, it's part of the Act. So I've brought it all in together here. The Procurement Act, if you're not aware, it's got built-in requirements for KPIs to be reported over certain contract values. Now, I see that one big risk of this is people would then naturally ask, well, what should I measure? What should I have as a KPI? And the danger is that suddenly our industry is awash with thousands of slightly different KPIs, which all require to be measured slightly differently. And what's the benefit of that? The benefit of a KPI is so you can monitor it, you can measure it, you can hopefully see improvement over time. For me, KPIs should be they should be aligned with others. They should, in many cases, be actually around providing data, then the performance, and going back to the NACF's plans for getting carbon reported. We want that carbon database built up via the built environment carbon database, because then it will all come in a certain format. We can measure, we can compare. It will give us an up-to-date benchmark of how different types of buildings and projects perform. And a good example, it's a few years old now, but if we look at waste data, so at YORhub, we've required contractors to provide data on their waste arisings and their waste landfill for many years. And we require that broken down into construction, demolition, and excavation waste. Now, we only score their performance. Well, we score their performance on one, have they submitted the data, and two, on the amount of construction waste that goes to landfill, because the demolition and excavation waste, that's generally down much more to the nature of the scheme than is the contractor. So that's what I mean by providing data than performance. I've just put transparency on there because there is a much more transparency in the Procurement Act and how to do that. Again, we do a lot of it with YORhub in terms of having to, how to communicate transparently. So happy to talk about that again in future on particular schemes. And I think it's fair to say that we all expect to see more change. The last Prime Minister talked a lot about spending money in the UK. The Defence Investment Plan talked about spending money in the UK, and I think we can be confident that Andy Burnham is going to only go further when it comes to his drive for devolution and ensuring that that power gets transferred regionally rather than nationally. This has all been great. Let's touch on how to actually have an effect. And you'll be pleased to know, because I know I'm doing a lot of talking, I will be coming to the end fairly soon, and then we'll have opportunity for a good Q&A chat. But let's touch on how to actually have an effect, because I've talked about lots of best practice areas, which are all great and good, but when it comes to an individual, or an individual organisation, or even just an individual person, it's one, understand where you are and what you want to achieve. There's no point trying to leap straight into a industry leading approach when it comes to this area, or indeed many areas. It's about understanding where you are and how to take the next step. So if you're just starting to get your head around what carbon is, that's fine, and how to measure it, that's fine, that's not a problem. You don't need to suddenly think, I need to leap forward and I need to be doing whole life carbon assessments if that's not where you are. Learn where you are and learn how to take the next step. And the same for your suppliers. There's no point you setting this is where I want you all to be if it is miles ahead of where the organizations are at this time. It's working with them and trying to take them a step by step forward. The third item is really annoying for me because I'm a procurement geek, and I would like to say that if I want to improve carbon performance on schemes, I should specify it, and I should, put it in all of our tender documentation and our frameworks, and force people to get there. We invested in some research with Leeds Beckett University a few years back, which working with a PhD candidate who's now achieved his full doctorate, Dr. Schreib Arogandade. Schreib's fantastic. He knows more about carbon than everyone else that I know put together. But what Schreib looked at was about what were the behaviours, what were the things that would actually impact on carbon performance, what would actually improve carbon performance on site, because it's great to measure and monitor, but then we do want to try and see how do we drive things to make things better. The biggest thing that came out of his research was it's about carbon literacy, and it's all well and good me or a project manager on the call sat there saying, we want you to do this, we want you to perform like that, we want to achieve these targets. Having the organizations working for you educate their people about carbon, that's the most important thing, and that's probably true for clients as well. At YORhub, we have a program of carbon literacy training that we do for the internal team. So that's an ongoing process to try and skill up our own people, and equally, it's something that each organisation should be looking at, in my view, as to how to learn more about carbon literacy. And the supply chain sustainability school is a great place to get knowledge as well. So I'd encourage heading there if you're looking to try and get more knowledge when it comes to carbon literacy. Understanding the aims of a project and taking into account the whole life of a structure. There's a lot of projects that this is not done. The focus is on, let's get the thing built, let's get the thing awarded, let's get the thing on site, open, and not looking at, well, what's going to happen to that building at the end of its life. How do you disassemble it? How do you recycle it? And that feeds back into your materials, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But understanding the whole life of the structure, which is something that should be done again in a whole host of respects, like CDM, that is a massive benefit to actually making sure that you get over the whole life a better carbon performance. Aligning specifications and KPIs. If you don't know, if you're sat there and you're thinking, I need to do something in terms of carbon, I want my jobs to be better when it comes to carbon, I don't really know how to do it, I'll write something in my specification and see how it goes. I mean, yes, okay, you can do that, but I would say try and align it, learn from others, ask the questions. Again, reach out to us at YORhub or at the NACF. We can talk about what we're putting in our specifications and see whether they're suitable to go into yours. We can highlight places for learning as well. There'll be a lot of people on the call from the I would anticipate from the Humber and Yorkshire region. There's a lot of free events going on in the area on a whole host of topics, including carbon. I'm involved with the Construction Excellence Yorkshire Humber Club. We run various best practice events, many of which are they're all free to the public sector. We do some free events for the private sector, and some there's a membership fee, but there's a whole host of events there. CIOB, Reba, Ricks, all professional institutes are all running their own events in the area. Look at what's out there and try and learn.
yeah, the point I was just making on here is a lot of these are not, you see number one on the list, timber. We've all used timber. It stores carbon. It performs well structurally. It can last for a very long time if you look after it. Steel, yes, it's got a high embodied carbon when you manufacture it, but then you can recycle it. It can, you can use it again and again and again. Concrete, brick, yes, they're low on the list because they've got a high embodied carbon, but it can last donkey's years. It's about thinking about what's going to be the long-term use of your building and making it so that it can be adapted and used for ideally for generations to come. So very durable. Yeah, I imagine you probably take the point. I do apologise for the audio. I've got a new wireless headset, and that was the issue. I did charge it up, but anyway, so I've gone to the tried and tested one now. I think the point I was kind of just coming to though was that's enough for me talking for now. Appreciate I've canned through things a little bit, but I'd really like to take the opportunity to see if anyone's got any questions, because I feel like I really need to get into some specific issues.
I saw a hand go. Let me see if I can unmute you, Gahan. Right, I'm not immediately aware of how to. I can bring you on screen, but maybe if there's any Q&A, if you want to pop it down in the chat, and we can tackle it that way, because I'm not immediately seeing how to make it. Yeah, David, are you able to unmute people?
Sorry, Mike, I'm just looking now myself, actually.
Yeah. Okay, we've got one come through on the chat anyway. So I'll see a couple come through. So we'll take the one on the chat first. Have you got any guidance for getting design partners involved in the carbon reduction code for the built environment? And this is a new evolution of the code. You're right. The code does evolve roughly, I'd say, once a year. They revise the code and add new elements into it. I mean, for us at YORhub, it's really just been starting the conversation with our designers and saying, look, fundamentally for us, this is something that we expect you to commit to. And we've not really had much in the way of issues for those who have been interested in it. They've had a quick look and they've gone, yeah, well, this is what we already do. Many of them already have net zero carbon policies, strategies. They already do a lot in terms of carbon literacy. So it's really about, for them, just demonstrating their existing commitment. And what we're certainly trying to do as the NACF is use the code as a, try and reach a critical mass where we've got so many of partners signing up to the code that it kind of becomes, well, obviously you need to sign up to the code. So it's that's why I've been pleased to see an acceleration in the number of people applying to the code, even though it causes administrators to look at a lot of work. But it's really positive because you start to see that rolling, speeding up of the industry when it comes to commitment to code. And Q&A from Richard: are you finding contractors are keen and proactive in adopting this? It's an interesting question, Richard, because so I did research a few months back with all of our YORhub contractors, and virtually all of them had carbon reduction policies, net zero carbon strategies, that sort of document. Some of them have, some of them are way, I'll be frank, way ahead of me, way ahead of us in terms of our maturity and our understanding. And I won't particularly name names, but feel free to go onto the website for the code, for the carbon reduction code for the built environment. And the code has a number of levels. It has pledger, signatory, and champion, and you can see which ones are champions. And they have had to go through a lot more of an assessment process to get awarded that than the lower levels. Some are very proactive. Some are, some do need more guidance and more guiding. And we do an amount of sitting down with individuals and talking through, look, these are the ways to try and achieve these areas. So it's a mixed bag. I'll be frank, Richard, but we do our best to try and skill everyone. Okay, I'm not see. Oh. Thanks for that, Gahan. So if you've not seen it, Gahan was going to ask about recycling bitumen in the reclaimed highways process, using it in road pavements and footways and cycleways using firm bitumen. But that requires an upfront tender approach to encourage contractors to look at recyclable options. Yeah, and this is kind of going back to one of the points. I'm really pleased that you asked this, because it goes back to one of the points I made in terms of the outcome-based approach. What you're actually trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve, road, pavements and footways and cycleways in a good condition, good strength, that are going to withstand the weather and traffic for a period of time. How you get there is something that you can discuss with your suppliers about how to achieve. We are actually in talks with who's going to hate me doing this, because I'm going to talk about future plans for a webinar that he's not organised whatsoever. But we've been talking with, there's a company called Low Carbon Materials who we've done, East Riding Council have done a couple of schemes with, incorporating their materials as part of, incorporating their materials as part of a road scheme to reduce the amount of embodied carbon. So we've done a couple of projects. I need to do an amount of work to try and pull together a webinar to go through why we would do it, the benefits of it, what we've seen in terms of performance. But that's something that we are looking at delivering later in the year as a bit of a webinar for all. Yeah, and again, interesting point that you make in terms of getting enough old asphalt. We, and I appreciate not all clients can do this. I know our civils team, we have held supplies of arisings for a period of time to then be used on future schemes. But that's something that we've been able to do because we've had available depots and space to do that. Can anything be done about using all PVC and insulation and the like? Potentially, but I'll be honest in that's not an area that I have a huge amount of knowledge in. I think I have to be sort of open on this, that that the areas that I do know a chunk about. A lot of this is areas that we collaborate with our designers and our contractors about. So we do operate a sustainability special interest group at YORhub, which meets periodically, and we talk through various issues. And a lot of that is really content brought by our contractors and our consultants, when they've done something that's a little bit different, interesting, that we want to share with a wider community. So there is research happening, certainly, but it's I'm not necessarily the best person to talk about. I'm quite happy to for us to look at that potentially through that group if that will be of interest. Seeing. Okay. I'm going to take it that we're probably about there in terms of questions. Please see no more questions. I do apologise again for the loss of audio and the 2-3 minutes you got to watch me just talking silently. So definitely lessons learned when it comes to use of a wireless headset. I should highlight to everyone we do have a couple more webinars which are already available to book. So on the 25th of August, we've got Katie Robinson talking about her current campaign about construction welfare, site welfare. And then on the 17th of September, we've got Amy giving us a really interesting webinar about using mobile phone data to educate, who travels where, why they travel places, how they travel, when. So it's how, for transport planners, that's a really interesting idea. I don't know if this bit came through or if I was silent during this bit. I will do a very, very swift plug of the Construction Excellence European Humber Club. This is something that I'm co-chair of. We operate in the region. Again, we do various best practice events and networking events. We have a conference taking place in September, which you're obviously the lead event partner of. All virtual or events are free for the public sector and for those in education. There's a small membership fee for those in the private sector, but do check out the website and do sign up to our events list if there's any of those kind of events that you'd like to find out more about. Otherwise, I think I've whittled on for long enough. So thanks to everyone who's stuck it to the end, and feel free to get in touch if you have anything after today. Thanks.